Right, what is up you guys and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be giving you a summary of the novel Candide. Just before I start, I wanted to give you just a quick introduction. So Candide is a novel first published in 1759 by Voltaire. If you don't know who Voltaire is, he was a French writer and philosopher, someone that was famous for his criticism of Christianity as well as his advocacy of separation of church and state. Pretty interesting guy, if you ask me, that has puts a lot of dark humor in this novel. So let's start with the summary, right? So we have the novel starts with Candide as the illegitimate nephew of a German baron. He grows up in the baron's castle under the tutelage of the scholar Pangloss, who teaches him that this world is, quote, the best of all possible worlds. Well, Candide falls in love with the Baron's young daughter. Her name was Cunegonde. But surprised, the Baron catches the two kissing and expels Candide from his home. Now, obviously, Candide on his own for the first time is soon enlisted into the army of the Bulgars. He wanders away from camp for a brief walk and sadly is brutally beaten as a deserter. After witnessing a horrific battle, he somehow manages to escape and ends up traveling to Holland. In Holland, a kindly Anabaptist named Jacques takes Candide in. Candide runs into a deformed beggar and discovers that it is actually Pangloss. Pangloss explains that Cunegonde and her family have all been brutally murdered by the Bulgar army. Nonetheless, he maintains his optimistic outlook, and keep an eye out for this optimistic outlook of Pangloss. Jacques takes Pangloss in as well. The three of them travel to Lisbon together, but before they arrive, their ship runs into a storm and Jacques is drowned. Candide and Pangloss arrive in Lisbon to find it destroyed by an earthquake and under the control of the Inquisition. Now, Pangloss is soon hanged as a heretic, and Candide is flogged for listening with approval to, you guessed it, Pangloss's philosophy. After his beating, there's an old woman that takes care of Candide's wounds, and then, to his surprise, she ends up taking him to Cunegonde. Cunegonde explains that though the Bulgars killed the rest of her family, she was captured by a captain who sold her to a Jew named Don Issachar. At present, she is jointly owned by Don Issachar and the Grand Inquisitor of Lisbon. Each of Cunegonde's two owners arrive in turn as she and Candide are talking, and obviously enraged, Candide kills them both. Now, terrified, Candide, the old woman, and Cunegonde flee and board a ship bound for South America. During the journey, the old woman obviously tells her own story and how she was the Pope's daughter, but has suffered, a lot of misfortunes that include cannibalism and enslavement. Now, Candide and Cunegonde plan to marry, but as soon as they arrive in Buenos Aires, the governor, Don Fernando, proposes to Cunegonde. Obviously thinking of her own financial welfare, she ends up accepting. Authorities looking for the murderer of the Grand Inquisitor arrive from Portugal in pursuit of Candide. Candide flees to a territory controlled by Jesuits who are revolting against the Spanish government. After demanding an audience with a Jesuit commander, Candide discovers that the commander is Cunegonde's brother. Funny how that works, the Baron, who also managed to escape from the Bulgars. Candide announces that he plans to marry Cunegonde, but the Baron insists that his sister will never marry a commoner, which is what Candide was. Obviously, Candide, now angry and enraged, runs the Baron with his sword and ends up killing him. He and Cacambo escape into the wilderness where they, avoid being eaten by a native tribe called the Biglugs. Now, after traveling for days, Candide and Cacambo find themselves in the land of El Dorado, where jewels litter the streets, literally. This utopian country has, this advanced scientific knowledge, no religious conflict, Gold and jewels hold no value here. So Candide longs to return to Cunegonde, and after a month in El Dorado, he and Cacambo depart with countless invaluable jewels loaded into a pack of sheep. When they reach the territory of Suriname, Candide sends Cacambo to Buenos Aires with instructions to use part of the fortune to purchase Cunegonde from Don Fernando and then to meet him in Venice. Now, this is where it gets interesting. And a merchant named Vander Dendor steals much of Candide's fortune, dampening his optimism somewhat. If you guys remember, this whole thing is about optimism. Obviously, Candide, now frustrated, sails off to France with a specially chosen companion. And unrepentantly, someone that's pessimistic, a scholar named Martin, on the way there. He recovers part of his fortune when a Spanish captain sinks Vander Dendor's ship. Candide takes this as proof that there is justice in the world, but Martin ends up disagreeing. Candide discovers Pangloss and the Baron in a Turkish chain gang. Both have actually survived their apparent deaths and, after suffering various misfortunes, arrived in Turkey. Despite everything, Pangloss remains an optimist. Really, really interesting that Pangloss is an optimist after all this. Obviously, now Candide, filled with joy, purchases their freedom, and he and his growing retinue go on to find Cunegonde and the old woman. Now, Cunegonde is not what she used to be. She has now grown quite ugly since Candide last saw her, but he ends up buying her freedom anyway, and he also buys that old woman's freedom, if you guys remember her. And he also buys a farm outside of Constantinople. He keeps his long-standing promise to marry Cunegonde, but only after being forced to send the Baron, who still cannot, accept that his sister is marrying a commoner. Candide, Cunegonde, Cacambo, Pangloss, and the old woman settle into a comfortable life on the farm, but they soon find themselves growing bored and quarrelsome. Think of it as, the quarantine in 2020. People, they get bored quickly and they start fighting with each other, although everything is fine and they have enough money to eat and such. Obviously, finally, Candide encounters a farmer who lives a very simple life, someone that works hard and avoids leisure. Obviously, now Candide inspired, he and his friends take to cultivating a garden in earnest. All their time and energy goes into the work, and none is left over for philosophical speculation. At last, everyone is finally fulfilled and happy. Now, I want to let you guys know something, that you shouldn't use this summary just to pass whatever exam you have. I actually really think that you should read the book. It's really funny and has a lot of witty, dark humor. So read the book and check the summary, and I think you'll actually enjoy it. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.